This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
Me hearties and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
And joining us today is our special guest host, totally the real Mozz.
Oh boy.
Why are you saying guest host? I've been here the whole time.
There we go. Okay, so totally the real
I don't know who the faker is, though.
Yeah, identity theft is a serious crime, sir.
Yes. Who is the imposter? No, we're not doing that game. We're doing WandaVision! Season 1, Episode 4. Let me get back to the IMDb real quick. We interrupt... Sorry. Can I go up? We interrupt this program. Season 1, Episode 4. Monica Rambeau, tasked with a special assignment regarding sentient weapons, goes missing. Our director this evening is a Mr. Matt Shackman. Our writers are... wrong button. So much going on. Our writers this evening are Bobak Esfarajani and Megan McDonnell, get both written by credits. The created by goes, of course, back to that Jack Schaefer, Jacqueline Schaefer, I believe her full name is. Her given name. And Cameron Squires, hardest working person in the show business this week, is our staff writer. Way to go, Cameron. So this episode has gained a lot of fan interest because it really embraces the horror of the blip. For those who don't remember, the blip is the term that people refer to colloquially as the decimation, although in truth it is actually the haptimation, because the decimation would actually be just 1/10 of the population. The haptimation would be 1/2 of all life in the universe. So when 1/2 of all life in the universe disappeared, that is the horror that was the haptimation. And
the horror that is them coming back.
Yeah, the horror that is them coming back, which is an interesting little side note.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, what did you
I just
say?
thought of something. If Thanos keeps on killing people, how would that bring balance? Wouldn't that make it more unbalanced than it used to be?
Well, the idea is that once he killed half the people, the universe is now in balance, and he could retire and become a farmer, just like Oliver Wendell Douglas. Always his dream to just open a little farm on Green Acres. And I want the episode where like some quick talking traveling salesman comes to Thanos' little farm and says, "Oh, Thanos, my name is Trailfaz Haney, and let me tell you what you need on your farm is a fantastic little tractor." I don't know, but yes, that's the Green Acres story of Thanos. But yeah, so once he theoretically stops killing people, is the argument. I'm sure he still kills people from time to time, but he just didn't have enough time because That's the thing. That's the most interesting thing about this episode is the timeline. Because essentially, here's what we get. And this, I'm always fascinated by the timelines. As I've said in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the first timeline of the new season takes place 1 year after the blip. They never talk about the blip, but then why would you? That was a year ago. We're all living our lives now. Now, all of us are sitting there with a bunch of angst and remorse like Captain America, a man out of time. Most of us are just dealing with the world we have and moving forward.
Right.
So, post-blip, you have, so the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are a year ahead, and they actually end before the 5-year time. So this is the 5-year time of after the Hulk snap to bring everyone back. And now we see Monica come back, and then we see our next scene with Monica is 3 weeks later because Mr. Hayward makes a point. It's like 3 weeks later, you're the first to show up to check in for their job, which is in and of itself a statement about how incredibly traumatizing coming back had to be. Because you imagine that you're coming back and you don't call your job. You don't call anyone. Like, what are the first... Well, obviously, yes, the first things you do is you call your family, try to reconnect, try to find something. But whatever you're doing, one of those things is going to be, maybe I should call my job. Especially if your job is, I'm one of the people in charge of... I'm one of the people who work at SWORD, a massive government agency.
At the same time, you find out it's been 5 years. You're like, I mean, no call, no show for 5 years. Pretty sure I don't have a job anymore. And who's that guy in bed with my wife?
Well, yeah, that, of course, is a bigger concern. That is probably, but this is what I'm saying. This is why I say the 3 weeks is a weird thing. Because it's like, okay, I can see, like, right in that moment, like, I can see, like, the first 2 weeks being catching up. But, like, the third week, you're probably saying, man, I should probably, like, reach out what's going on at my job, especially if my job is a company that deals with weirdness.
Right.
It's not like, weirdness is a new thing. It's like, no, this is literally in our job description. But that is the first clue that Mr. Hayward is evil. And this is why. Because Mr. Hayward knows she's coming in, takes no action to have her accesses turned back on. And that's an interesting choice to make. Now, granted, there is...
You don't know that. I mean, it could be a simple oversight. Just saying.
Well, and it could also be protocol. I mean, obviously, there was concern that when people come back, are these even the real people?
Oh.
But
they know about Skrulls and everything, right? So.
Well, exactly. We know they know about Skrulls because that's where SWORD gets founded. Because we also see that Monica's mom, Maria Rambeau, is the Agent Carter of SWORD. SWORD, yes. So, that's a whole bag of hammers. And it's like in the first 10 minutes of this thing, we're going to spend like 30 minutes of this talk about it. Because there's so much in it. That's the amazing thing about WandaVision, is it is just so dense with what's going on. One of the things that they bring up in this is... So let me just backtrack here. Her ID doesn't work. Now, this is the thing. He could have said, come in, go to the secretary. He could have told her, because obviously he had an appointment they had an appointment together. So they must have conversed. So he could have said, look, understand that, because you just came back, your IDs probably aren't going to work. So just let them know in the lobby that you're here to see me. Have a seat. They'll let me know you're here. I'll come down. I'll get you. I'll bring you in. He doesn't do that. He sandbags her, which means he's always putting her on her back foot. So their immediate relationship is put Monica on her back foot because she was the person who should have been in charge of these things. And he kind of slipped into the position because he was the only person left.
Right, and somebody had to do it. I mean, I don't know why we got to paint him with that sort of a brush.
Because, again, the idea is as heavy as the head that wears the crown.
Sure.
So if someone is wearing a crown and is totally cool with it, that's probably problematic. If you're too cool with wearing that crown, that means that, you have...
He came off to me like sort of someone who runs things from the perspective of, I am just a cog in the bureaucracy. My job is here simply to facilitate that all the other parts work, and he's just a paper pusher kind of, And I think that's what's made him last, is that he doesn't try to be more than he needs to be. He just gets what everybody needs, and then he plugs along. That's the sense I got from him. Not that he had any grandiose ideas, and obviously they might be throwing us off with giving me that impression, but that's the impression that I got.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me way too much of Alexander Payne from Winter Soldier. He reminds me of the, blonde, nice guy who's good looking. He is so much. Here's what I'll say: the biggest argument that he's not evil is that he looks too much like Alexander Payne. That
he also reminded me of in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Remember the guy who ran the CIA who was Putty from Seinfeld?
Oh, yes.
He was sort of in that same, archetype of kind of character. And he was the guy,
But he was Putty from Seinfeld.
Fair enough.
So, you're not going to make Patrick Warburton be the evil guy.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Patrick Warburton asks, I want to do evil, which sometimes actors will do. They will say, I need to do an evil guy because I'm too beloved as the big dumb guy.
Yeah.
But I think he gets that out of his system in being a Venture brother. That's the thing with him.
I have a question for you. Do you think Hydra has something to do with this whole WandaVision thing, with all the advertisements having like Strucker, Hydra theme, Hydra logo, and even the Hydra name? Or do you think that's just Wanda remembering about Hydra?
That's a great point. And interestingly enough, this is the first episode that we don't get a commercial. Because this is, again, working with this weird time anomaly. Weird time anomaly. Because it does appear that everything that's happening is maybe even on a loop. Suggesting that there is, essentially, that the broadcast that's coming out, because the broadcast isn't real time, because we can see that it's not real time, because we see that, because here's the thing, when we know that when Monica goes in, it's in episode 2. But when Darcy first plugs in, it's in episode 1. So we can see that we're seeing things come back. We also see that there must be some kind of a repetition in what we're saying, because Darcy makes the point when she sets up the radio transmitter for Jimmy that she washes dishes every episode, which first off implies there's been more than one episode between what we think of as episode 1 and episode 2.
Interesting.
But also suggests that there is some kind of... This is my thing. So here's my grand overarching theory. I think Wanda is reaching out at the same time that she is in control and trapped. This, I think, is the idea that is within this, is this idea that, yes, she is controlling things, but she is also trapped and being manipulated, and she is reaching out. Now... within this is Jimmy Woo. And here's what I have to say about Jimmy Woo. Jimmy Woo in the comics is hyper capable and is actually like the secret son of Yellowclaw, who is the sort of basically Marvel's manufactured Fu Manchu because they knew they wouldn't always have a Fu Manchu. So when they needed a Yellow Menace, they created Yellow Claw for Jimmy Woo to fight in the 50s. And Jimmy Woo was the American Chinese guy who would fight that evil Chinese influence. Yeah, well, hey, it was the 50s, man.
Wow.
Wait, something that I just want to say something. Mm-hmm. Something that is like really surprising me is none of the sword agency is remotely worrying about the hazmat person. None of them even, because they just put up a rope without the hazmat person. So I'm surprised none of them are worrying, like, what happened to the guy?
Well,
I think because they've also seen Monica Rambeau on the other side, so they know that you can probably survive, and they're like, hey, let's see if we see him on the TV, you know? I think they probably know he's okay because they saw Monica Rambeau and they know that she was fine, so...
Yeah, they know that thing, although arguably they didn't know that until after the jump rope came back. Although, again, and it's interesting to point out, the jump rope is still crackling with Reality Stone energy when it comes back. Because that's essentially that's the thing. So when you get to that question, because you do get the Jimmy Woo whiteboard of why hexagons. The reason why hexagons is because they are 6-sided. And there are 6 Infinity Stones.
Oh.
And Wanda is essentially tied to all 6 Infinity Stones.
So are these just some people that she brought with the snap?
No, I think these are all people who lived in Westview. That's the thing. Westview,
so
I think,
is real?
Oh, yeah. Well, we see the signs for Westview. We see that's.
But are those signs on our side or on the other side?
No, on our side, because we see Monica going to the Westview exit on Route 2. I'm not sure if Route 2 is really in New Jersey, but I haven't checked my road atlas recently. But
why would those cops say that they've never heard of Westview?
Because that's the thing. That's what's weird. Is most everyone has been separated, but certain people aren't. So, and this goes. This is that deep dive Easter egg hunt. So when so there is a missing person in Westview, and when they go missing, Jimmy Woo tracks down their known associates, and none have ever even heard of them, except as the person in charge of that case. How is Jimmy Woo not an associate? So why is he spared? And this is something Monica raises. And this is the thing to me about Jimmy Woo. I think he knows way more than he lets on. I think that, like Columbo, he presents this idea that I'm just wacky Jimmy Woo. Look at my card tricks. But it's misdirection, close-up magic. You know, that is Jimmy Woo. And the idea is that this is a guy who got made the babysitter of a superpowered person. Then the next major superpower event after people return, it again centers around Jimmy Woo, which means that Jimmy Woo is either placing himself or someone is placing him in these moments.
Interesting.
So I do, there's always, for those who don't know Jimmy Woo in the comics, there's a what if called What If the Avengers Had Formed in the 1950s? And it is Jimmy Woo bringing together all these superpowered 50s characters, including Venus, who is the first person to fight Loki in Marvel Comics, an atomic robot, 3D Man, who was actually a character that was like rewritten to be in the 50s, but was actually created in the 70s. Okay. And he basically had the power of, he had all of his human stats tripled. So that's why he was so, he was 3 times as strong, 3 times as fast, 3 times as...
And that's all it took to be a superhero back then?
Back then. Well, Captain America is just like the best at things.
Right,
like,
but he's
really
like the
good at
best,
running.
not just 3 times. Well, I guess 3 times better is 3 times as good as any other human.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you were 3 times as strong as you are right now, you'd probably be pretty strong. If I was 3 times as fast as I am right now, I'd be pretty fast. I'm actually a really good runner. But for a big fat guy, I'm a good runner. But, I'm like the wizard from the Jessica Jones series, a big fat guy, but sometimes I can just like burst into speed.
That's funny.
Anyway, so I do feel that there is a big secret with Jimmy Woo that they're not going to reveal here.
Right.
Because that's the thing. This is, in many ways, I kind of feel there is this idea of, what if we did a Jimmy Woo Darcy series?
I'd watch that. I'd watch the hell out of that.
Everyone would. And that's the thing. But I think they said, okay, so we're going to do that WandaVision is this, but we're also kind of thinking about, you know what, let's look at some of our secondary characters who we have on these super long contracts who are just grateful to be on the team. What can we do with them?
You know who I want to see back? Who is the sidekick for Ant-Man? His friend with the band.
What
Michael
is his
Pena?
name?
I forget his name.
I know Michael Pena. I'm just trying to remember what his character's name is.
I can't remember, but that guy is gold. I want to see him.
Oh, that guy is very good. Well, he'll definitely be back in Ant-Man 3. Because they're not going to do that without him.
Right.
And what I'll tell you is that now that as Marvel has set up, they'll totally put him in the Jimmy Woo Darcy series. Because let's put one of our other characters.
Yeah.
It'll be the Legends of Tomorrow of the Marvel Universe, but will be like beloved because it'll be just it'll just always be chef's kiss, Legends of Tomorrow, for those who don't know, on the CW is like a bunch of DC like characters that were like kind of cool, but no one quite knew what to do with. That just get jammed into one show and they like rotate people off and rotate people on based on, I don't know, let's try this. And I could totally see Marvel doing a Legends of Tomorrow storyline with Wu and Darcy in the center of it and just adding characters just to see what sticks. Yeah. And that being hugely popular.
I like the idea.
But anyway, but the idea of the Hexagon is that because Wanda is projecting out all of the Infinity Stones, she is creating this hexagonal design around Westview, but there is a limit on her power. Now, arguably, the idea is maybe to push her past the limit or to create the children, because as we saw in the last episode, it is all about the children. For the children.
Right.
And that for the children is so central, is what I've always said, is the question of, is this all for the children? And is that Wanda wanting children? I don't think so.
Yeah, it felt forced upon her. But once it was there, she seemed really about it.
Well, of course, because, when you're there, who isn't about it? I mean, that's the thing. Right. It's like when you're in that moment and you're like, oh, wow, I'm going to be a mom or a dad, you often...
And then the babies are there, you're like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. You're like Darcy, oh, I'm invested,
Yeah.
And in this moment, what I think the real idea here is that Wanda and Vision, Wanda is creating this universe. And this is actually the thing that I think is the real takeaway from all of this. Vision can leave, but Wanda doesn't know Vision can leave. Because we see anything created in this reality comes out as it was. But Vision doesn't know that, and Wanda doesn't know that. So when Vision tells her, we can go anywhere we want to, Wanda says no. Because she just wants to stay here. Because she's afraid to lose Vision. And I do think that even though Wanda is, quote-unquote, in charge, someone is manipulating her. Right. Now, who is manipulating her? Arguably Mephisto, to reclaim his pieces of soul. Or possibly Hydra and AIM, because as I pointed out, the Beekeeper, he is revealed to be a sword agent, is wearing a yellow hazmat suit when he goes in. Tristan says it's more orange than yellow. I'm saying it's yellow enough for a yellow.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the idea is this being is being shown for what they are at a intrinsic level. That there's something that is being presented more. And this is something that comes up when the helicopter is shown. Because Jimmy Woo says, why is it a helicopter? And he says, I don't know, production design? And she says, maybe to render it useless. Darcy says that, which is both true. It's production design, but it's still recognizable as what it is. Mm. And so when you think about the hazmat guy, why become a beekeeper with bees, except that we want to make a statement about who he really is?
And what's that statement?
Well, that's...
I'm still confused because when he was going through the portal, he was acting like nothing was happening. He didn't even remotely respond to everything going to black and white and his hazmat suit being turned into a beekeeper.
Well, you'll notice that he didn't notice things didn't go fully black and white until WandaVision came out and Wanda and Vision came out. Prior to that, his headband was still yellow. Yeah, I know. I watched this thing 4 times already because I'm like, oh, what's the detail? What's the detail? So when he comes out of the sewer grate, he is there. He doesn't react because he probably isn't aware of what has changed yet. He still looks out.
And he's an operative of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's probably pretty good at understanding he's walking into a situation where he would need to keep his wits about him and keep his observation at the forefront of what he's doing.
All right, someone made a joke where if no one except Wanda can see the changes, everyone would be horrified when they see Vision because they'll just see a corpse.
Yes. Well, although, in fact, that is actually something that's brought up. Because as was pointed out when we're looking at the little bios written on everyone, there's details about what happened to characters in lost episodes. So, for example, I'm forgetting his name, but the guy who works with Vision at the computational form company apparently had a moment of clarity where he was worried about his dad and his sister.
Doesn't that happen in the next episode?
No, that happens in this episode.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no next episode yet. Mozz,
I know, but in the trailer you see Vision sort of doing his thing to him.
Oh, yeah. No. But apparently, so people with more time and energy and the ability to download something off of Disney Plus and cut it up and, zoom in and enhance. Zoom in and enhance. They have apparently seen that the identity notice for Vision's coworker has a whole thing that when Vision awakens him,
right,
he asks about his father and sister. Mm. Which I thought was interesting because it immediately, because he is South Asian, then we started thinking, is this a Ms. Marvel reference? Since we are getting Ms. Marvel, and we know Monica Rambeau just got kicked out of this reality, no doubt covered in Reality Stone energy. Because we saw that when the jump rope came back. Even as it's coming out of the sewer, it's still got Reality Stone energy on it. So, going back to all of this, where were we? The fact that everything's edited and who is editing it. Now, we know that Wanda rewinds. And based on something we've seen in the trailer for upcoming episodes, where it seems that Agnes says, should I do it again? Just as Monica in this episode says, do you want me to say it again? You're a strong woman. Shows that there is this idea that people are more aware of where they are, and that they know that when things bring us out, we're supposed to go back. We're supposed to reset this scene. So, for the beekeeper, I don't think we've seen the last of him.
Right.
Assuming that he wasn't pushed back out, which is another possibility. That we may see that in episode 5, that he was pushed back out. That
He couldn't have been, because I don't think Wanda knows about him yet. Because had she the ability to be able to tell when there was an interloper in their midst, she would have noticed Monica Rambeau much earlier.
Yeah. And that is what's interesting about this episode, is we get a lot more glitches. We get Herb at the beginning, who is cutting into the wall as if he's trying to break free. Weird thing, maybe it's just me reading way too much into what I'm seeing, but as you see him cut through the wall, there is a moment where the paint sort of flakes off at the sides, which almost makes it look like a sword. Like the way the cut looks, it looks like it's more like a curved sword, like a scimitar, but it goes in, or a saber, it goes in, and he's cutting, and then as the paint is chipping off, there's a part right at the end where it sort of flakes off laterally, where the paint flakes off, so that the actual cut in the wall looks like a sword. So maybe that's nothing. Maybe that was just random coincidence. Said no, leave it in, because people are going to think we did that intentionally, which I'm sure people will, because clearly I did.
Right.
But that leads into that whole scene with Wanda, with Vision, Agnes, and Herb at the end of the last episode, where that scene actually is, where, clearly the other people know what's going on. Oh, here's a fun fact, which you would have to live in Jersey to know.
Huh.
So New Jersey just redesigned their driver's license, and they look like fake IDs.
Huh.
Because they just, I guess the new manufacturer for them is just sort of like strip printing them. So they literally look fake. And they're very flat. They don't have a lot of detail. They don't have any... they have some things in them. They have some security features in them. But, as a guy who used to work in a liquor store, if someone came to me with this ID, I'd say that is clearly fake. And that flat look to them, the fact that they're not unlaminated, that they're unlaminated, that they're not embossed, that is like a thing that would make you immediately go, this does not look right. But at the same time, that is the design of driver's license that they're pinning to these, because they are literally things you could print out on a pretty simple printer. I found that a delightful touch they did there, and just makes me wonder how deep this. And again, that little details like that are the kind of things that make me think, wow, how far did they think of this ahead?
Yeah.
Because it's like, wow, they had the new licenses in New Jersey, and they must have known that the new licenses in New Jersey look really fake. And maybe that's a clue about how fake everything is here, how fake Jersey is. I don't know. I don't know what they're saying, Mozz, but I'm very confused.
Was the ID in present time, or was the ID that you're referencing?
So that is a 2021 or a 2020 ID. So when you look at it, that's the thing. It's like my new. Because I just got my Jersey driver's license renewed in December. Mm-hmm. And it's good for a few years. And then now New Jersey driver's license renew on your birthday. So they don't renew, because before what it was is they renewed so many years from the date you got it. So my ID always renewed in December, because that was when I first got it. Now they renew on your birthday, and they are very different, is what I will say.
Okay.
And they are printed very flat, and they seem like, when you get a really, like a lot of insurance cards are printed that way, where they're very thin, they're very flexible, and you kind of feel like they're just printed on, and all of the details are going to wear off in short order in your wallet. And I kind of feel that's how they're designed. They're designed that they're
like a ShopRite discount card.
Yeah, pretty much. That's a lot of how they feel. And I just thought it was an interesting note. They're using those modern Jersey driver's licenses, even though a lot of people wouldn't technically have them, because they are actually the new driver's licenses for 2020, which means that since most people got their driver's license in 2019 or a time before this, they would look a little different. So it was just an interesting thing for me that's the driver's license they attached. And again, one of those weird little rabbit holes that you could go down, but they were like, no, literally, we just asked, hey, Jersey, what do your driver's licenses look like right now? And I said, oh, this is what they look like. I said, okay, we can print out a bunch of fake ones for our show. And it went no deeper than that. But it is like one of those where like,
That's pretty cool.
Let me talk about Easter eggs for something else, which is Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying this. I didn't know what I was looking for.
Well, here's the thing. There are a few things. One of which, again, there's a blue Korg in this, which is the thing that I see and everyone sees, but no one mentions. So the blue Korg in this is that we see someone working on what is clearly a rocket ship in the background. Just as Monica says, the new acronym says observation, not construction. Meaning that we're not supposed to be, which is the other aspect of this, which is, again, why I think Hayward is evil. Because clearly the idea of going out into space, building these rocket ships, building this exploration aspect of the industry was a big thing. And it seems like Hayward, since the blip, has brought them more internal. And now we're observing sentient weapons. We're not exploring sentient worlds. And that's the idea, that there is the shift between the blip. That when it was under Maria and Monica was a flyer, it was the Sentient World Observation and Response Department.
Right. I mean, what could they possibly have a response to these days? Because just look how shattered and fractured our society is. Any would-be evildoers are probably just as devastated, infrastructurally speaking. So Anybody that had any aims to do us harm probably has to play a lot of catch-up before their wheels can get greased again.
Well,
it's probably pretty peaceful.
It's fortunate that you said their aims. Because, of course, and here's the thing, and here's where it gets into this really deep dive comic booky aspect of it. So, AIM is at least somewhat tied to the Mandarin.
Okay.
The Mandarin grows out of the same yellow fear that Jimmy Woo and the Yellow Claw does. And it's pretty clear that the Ten Rings and the Mandarin exist in the MCU as a manipulative agency, possibly tied to Hydra. So you have this idea that, oh yes, after the blip, there is this dearth of support staff. And plant within Sword, who was Hayward, suddenly finds himself in the position of authority and brings in a bunch more beekeepers from AIM who are tied to the Mandarin, which is no doubt tied to Hydra, into Sword. So he essentially got the opportunity to bring who he could in and immediately turned the focus away from the outward pursuit of the stars towards the inward pursuit. And when he says, and this is the thing, when he says, we lost half of our astronauts in the blip and half lost their nerve, that's an important point when we see the guy working on the rocket ship in the background. Because essentially, for those who don't know, the Fantastic Four origin is, here's the idea. You have these two people, Reed and Ben, who are a bit older than Sue and Johnny. Sue is in love with Reed. And when they decide to steal the ship because they've been told, you can't take that ship up, we're not allowing us to go out into the stars. Reed says, you know what, we should steal the ship. And Ben says, I'm not going up there. You know, there's too much danger up there. I'm not going up there. And Sue says, gee, Ben, I never thought you were a coward. And then he's like, don't you call me a coward. We're going up in that ship tomorrow. And they steal the ship and they fly up, get exposed to CMBR, cosmic background radiation, although actually cosmic radiation from the sun, and get transformed into the Fantastic Four. And what you immediately establish in this idea is Sue is younger than Reed, but they are deeply in love. Perhaps that's because Sue was younger than Reed, but then Sue came back from the blip and Reed is aged 5 years. Oh. So originally they were 5 years apart in age, which is, relatively reasonable, but now they're 10 years apart in age, along with Ben, and also gives a reason why Ben maybe has lost his nerve for spaceflight, because he's been dealing with this post-blip world, and it's been very hard on him.
So you think that has already happened?
Yeah, well, no. The idea is that if they're going to do a Fantastic Four that isn't already historically existing, mm-hmm. which was always my original theory, it's like, well, if you're going to do that, this gives you a really neat slip-in for it. Yeah. Because suddenly we have this reason why, again, Reed is older than Sue, like significantly older than Sue, and why, why Ben originally is afraid to go up. Because we've established this. And if you have into that idea, the idea that Hayward has basically sown the fear, made sure that people didn't want to go up, didn't want to explore, because we're trying to take care of Earth, and we're Earth first. We're going to make Earth great again. That Hydra aim ideal. Then that gives why Ben has trepidation, and why it takes someone like Sue, who didn't experience all of the brainwashing that Hayward has been feeding to his troops this whole time for the last 5 years, gives her the confidence to push forward, and also basically undoes what is the real horror of Sue, that she basically in 1960s lingo cockattishly, well, I guess you're not a real man, Benjamin Grimm, but also gives basically an excuse to that concept. So you can get that original Fantastic Four idea without having to embrace all of the awkwardness of the 1960s Fantastic Four. And, for what it's worth, maybe even makes the argument that that's why we're doing that sliding time here, is that there is this reality that is unmoored from time that maybe the Scarlet Witch is aware of, that maybe culminates in Franklin, because it's Franklin who is the one who decimated Mephisto that caused his soul pieces to form into Tommy and William. But that's just an idea, man. I don't know. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I think we got to it. I really got to see the outside and see what was happening. It's finally nice to be able to get some context.
Totally the real Mozz. What do you think?
I agree with the fake Mozz. I think we went over it.
I don't think he's the fake Mozz. I think you're the imposter.
To be honest, Charlie kind of sucks.
I am very sus. I am probably the most sus here. I'll be honest with you. I'm wearing a hat now. I never wear a hat. What's up with that? Okay. So, moving right along. Mozz, I hope you've enjoyed talking to me. I've enjoyed listening to you. But, sometimes listening to people isn't always as easy as it could be, because sometimes I don't have tweaked audio headsets. Stop that. Oh, he's watching us as we're doing this. I thought he was just watching fun videos. He's watching us as we put. It's weird. Okay, that's kids for you. But anyway, so the headphones I have are not tweaked audio headsets, which you can get at tweakedaudio.com, which are amazingly high quality headphones that you can get for not only already a discount, an inexpensive price, but you can actually get a discount by using the coupon code Southgate at checkout. Not only that, but you can use that same coupon code if you ever had a coupon that you wanted to use twice. Well, now you can use Southgate at checkout for HauntedKiller.com. Get another discount on that amazing escape room delivered to your house where you help Michelle Gray solve a cold case. If you like to have your brain stimulated, like many people do, that might be a thing for you. But if none of that is a thing for you, you just say, I just want random avarice. Go down into our show notes, click on the link to Amazon, go to Amazon, buy whatever the heck you want. I don't care. It's not my business. And it won't cost you a cent, but they're going to know that it's not going to cost them any additional cents. It'll cost them the cost of the thing they buy, but it won't cost them more than what they buy. But it lets them know, it lets Amazon know, it lets the great Jeff Bezos know that we were the ones who said, hey, go to Amazon and buy things. And we served our capitalistic overlords well that day. And they will reward us, I'm sure. And while you're there, check out Pod Life, the book written by the Southgate Media Group crew about why they podcast, how they podcast, what podcasting means to them, and how it saved their lives. You might enjoy that if you like podcasts. And it is available both in a hard copy and a digital download, and maybe, according to legend, eventually an audiobook. And in the meantime, Totally Real Mozz, if people wanted to contact you via social media, how could they do that?
Well, they could follow, they could go to YouTube, and maybe they could support this random YouTuber called Toxin Gamer. Very handsome, by the way. And you could support him.
Toxin Gamer or Toxin Gamer 13?
Toxin Gamer 13. I don't know who the guy is, though.
I don't know him either. He's great at stop motion animations and playthroughs. In the meantime, Mozz Manzoor, would people like to touch base with you? How can they do so?
They can find me on YouTube under Toxin Gamer 14.
Oh! Now it was going to Toxic Gamer 14, Mozz.
Technically, you're not stealing my identity.
I knew he was sus. Throw him out the airlock.
You can reach me on Facebook under Mozz Manzoor, or email me at mozzmanzoor@gmail.com. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, if you would ever like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way, the way Wanda and Vision did in the 90s, coming soon, you can do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. But I want to say that the stork sounds exactly like an AOL modem booting up in both the last and this episode, so I just want to say that it's like it sounds like a modem, so maybe that's something. One more deep dive to go on, and of course follow me on the Twitter. It's a live tweet, Batwoman, no, Batwoman on Sunday nights, I believe at 8:00 on the CW. At Charlie Esser, that's CHARLIE. Yes, SCR. Look for the 2 E's in the middle. For what?
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. Arg, me hearties, you've survived another voyage on the tempest-tossed seas of the Reality Stone. Join us next week as we once again sail full stream ahead. Arg!
Bruce Springsteen is known around the world as one of rock and roll's most dynamic performers because of his music and his live shows. He also has a passionate fan base. I'm Jesse Jackson, and for the past 4 years on Set Listing Bruce, I've talked to Springsteen fans from around the world, each of them sharing why Bruce and his music has meant so much to them in their daily lives. If you love Bruce Springsteen's music, or if you just love good stories from passionate fans, I hope you will check out Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, wherever you can find your favorite podcasts. Remember, there is magic in the night.